What's going on, Paisanos? V here, coming at you guys, well, with my deck profile, Despia Dogmatika Shaddolls. Now, before I begin, I just want to say a couple of things. Number one, when I go with this deck profile, I'm going to go with the main and extra deck. I will not do the side deck yet. That will require an entirely different video. Number two, there are many variations of Despia Dogmatika invoked Shaddolls. This build is Despia Shaddolls Dogmatika. There we go, we got it. That's what's going to be on this build. Now, once again, I'm only showing this build right now because that's the current build I'm playing. More than likely, as time goes on, I will change, evolve, modify this deck, as well as other variations of this deck. I still think Shaddoll Dogmatika Invoked is good. I still think Shaddoll Invoked is good. This is just another spin, more tools in the toolbox that is the variations of what I see as Shaddolls. It's all Shaddoll hybrids. So, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to go over the main and extra deck, and after that, then I'll go with my decisions. And then I have a pile of cards that were basically my choices of cards that I decide to not add in the deck, or some cards I think you might want to consider if you were looking to play a similar variation. All right, and then by the way, and then I'll give my reasons why I'm not playing Invoked in this variation. So right off the gate for the Dogmatika package, the Despia package, not Dogmatika, Despia package, we have 3 Aluber, Despia, 2 Despian Tragedies, and 1 Dramaturge of the Despia. Once again, I'll give you my reasons for my choices and everything at the end of the profile. Next up, we have 3 Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. For our dolls, we got 2 Shaddoll Wendy, 2 Shaddoll Construct, 1 Ariel, 1 Shaddoll Beast, 1 Shaddoll Hedgehog, and 1 Shaddoll Dragon. So this is a Shaddoll variation of the deck. And then we have 1 Fallen Albaz, 1 Elder the Golden Lord, and then we have Dogmatika Ecclesia and 1 Dogmatika Fleur-de-Lis. So that is the monster count. The deck is currently 41 cards. I want to play 40, but right now it's currently stuck at 41 cards, and I think it's really hard to see what to cut and what to add and stuff like that. Okay, for the spells, we have 3 Shaddoll Fusion, 3 Allure Darkness, 3 Nadir Servant, 2 Branded Opening, 2 Super Poly. For the ones, we have 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Despia Theater of the Branded, 1 Harpy's Featherluster, 1 Corp of the Grave, and 1 El Shaddoll Fusion. So these are all the spells. And then for the traps, we have Shaddoll Incarnation, as well as a Shaddoll Schism. So that's 41, once again. For the extra deck, what we have here is 2 El Shaddoll Construct, 2 El Shaddoll Winda, 2 El Shaddoll Apkalone, 2 Despian Quaterus, 1 Despian Pro Skeleton. I know some of these might be not their names, but the names are really goofy, so just rename them. Make it sound infinitely cooler. And then we have Albion the Branded Dragon, 1 Titanclad, 1 Elder Entity Entis, 1 Starring Venom Fusion Dragon, and then we have 1 Gravity Controller, and we also have 1 Predator Verna Edakande. Now, that is 15 cards. Let's double check real quickly. Boom. 3 and 2, boom, and 3 and 2. It'd be great if I had 16. All right. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna go with my choices. But before I go with my choices, let me explain. Actually, I'll go with some of the stuff in this pile, and then we'll go back over the deck. If you're only looking for a deck profile, it's right there. All right. Number 1, why did I not run Gamma? Gamma's really bad against really good players, and I feel like the more you play Gamma, whether it's like your locals or multiple locals, more players will know to play around Gamma. It doesn't really work. Could it be good at a regionals or YCS or maybe the extravaganza? Absolutely. But at a locals level, Gamma's really bad because a lot of players just play around it really easily. One thing I think a lot of players need to pick up, by the way, is going to be this. You want to get your number 100, number 97, number 38, and the first Dark Lord. This is an engine that can be used. Obviously, Numeron can help you kill. Number 38 definitely helps you get more negations. And I feel like in more of an invoked variation, this is a better version of cards to play. Obviously, there's different ways of doing it, and with the new support coming out in the next core set, this could see a lot more play. So you might want to pick one before it gets too crazy. Why don't I play the 3rd El Shaddoll Construct? Well, there's no room, to be honest with you. And if I had a 16th slot, it will more than likely belong to a Despian monster rather than a 3rd Construct. I like the 3rd Construct. I own a 3rd OT first edition. It doesn't mean anything if it doesn't really work in theory. I feel like if you went through 2 Shaddoll Constructs in your match and you're still having problems and you just can't kill your opponent, then you're just getting outgrinded. Can it happen? Maybe, depending on the circumstance of what you drew. El Shaddoll Noritalis and Shaddoll Core is really good against Drytron, bad against everything else. So that's why you don't really run it, even though I really like this card a lot. We also don't run Predator Draxapelio. This is really good if you have a locus full of players that are playing, well, this Shaddoll variants. Against other non-Shaddoll variants, this card is not as good. This card is not as good as its counterpart, which is, hold on, let me make sure I can put it side by side, which is Starting Venom Fusion Dragon. Usually you see players running either or. You don't see players running both because you just don't have the room to run both. So that's why I think Starting Venom Fusion Dragon is better, especially since when you make Starting Venom Fusion Dragon, you go Predator Runner Anaconda, use the first effect, turn your opponent's monster dark, and now you got it dark, your opponent's monster dark, and there you go. You got this guy over here. So that's why I decided to run this card instead of Predator Planet Drexapelia. Then we have Forbidden Droplets. So the reason why I don't run Forbidden Droplets is just not that good of a card right now. I feel like with a lot of decks in the meta, it's a decent card at best. I'd rather run Dark Rule No More because if you're playing against your opponent and let's say they're playing something like Drytrons, Dark Rule No More is infinitely better than Droplet and you have more versatility. Is Droplet still a great card? Absolutely. And a lot of players can definitely find a lot of ways to make this card a lot useful. Once again, the meta slows down, this card becomes a lot better. As the meta speeds up and we see a lot of players just going crazy turn one, this card isn't as good. So I don't hate this card, but it's just not as good at the moment. Why don't I play any more El Shaddoll fusions? The answer is really simple. It's because this deck doesn't really care about fusion something with El Shaddoll fusion when we have the Despia Theater of the brand on board. And we also play 2 super polymizations, which I'll get to in a second. We have a lot of other fusion techniques. This one right here is only needed as a one-of. It's not as needed in more of an invoked variation, which we can argue about too, which I think it does need. Shackanaga is another phenomenal card, but being the fact that there's not enough Earth monsters in the game, you don't run Shackanaga. Why don't I run Neo Shaddoll Genius? I want to place this card. I want to place just about every Shaddoll card, and I don't like Genius. I think this card's a really bad card. In a slower format, it's decent, but in the current format we're in right now, playing this card going second is you're just playing a brick. We already have another card to negate monster effects, and to be honest with you, you're not always wanting to go and negate your opponent's monster effect as much as you are trying to control the board. Once again, we are a mid-range deck, even though this deck has a heavy early game. The cool thing about this deck, what I like a lot, is if you have Shaddoll invoked, let me put it over here so you can see. If you have Shaddoll invoked, or even Shaddoll invoked Dogmatika, you really care a lot about the mid-range. This deck can play heavily turn 1, 2, and even 3, and then anything beyond that, maybe even turn 3, the steam is kind of out. The deck's just doing pretty much the same exact thing. But turn 1 and 2, this deck can kill you in 1 turn, which is pretty crazy. That's why I like the uniqueness about this variation. Going back to Genius, though, I don't think it's that good of a card. I think it's good in slower decks, definitely good in Trap Shaddolls, but not really good in this variation. So that's why I don't run it whatsoever. Why don't I run a second Neo Shaddoll Aerial? Well, the answer is easy. Anyone who plays a second Neo Shaddoll Aerial immediately plays 1. Everyone who plays a 1 Neo Shaddoll Aerial wants to play 2, and when they play 2, they go back to immediately playing 1. It's that simple. As far as the second Hedgehog, in this build you don't need a second Hedgehog. I do think that in an Evoked variation you do, because this card flipping is actually a lot more important in that variation than this. Is it still important? Yes, but not as much important. Especially with the Despia cards when you can pitch this card and get more value. You don't want to open 2, it's a neg. Why don't I run Fusion Deployment? Fusion Deployment is not bad if you're running multiple versions of Albaz. I don't run multiple versions of Albaz. I don't like multiple versions of Albaz. I think it's a cute, gimmicky kind of play. And with Fusion Deployment, even though it's a great card, it's just not worth running. I do think that with Fusion Deployment, if you are playing a more streamlined deck with Albaz, it does get better. But ultimately, I'm not crazy about this card, to be honest with you. I tested it out, and it breaks a lot. Graded Optimization is a tech choice that's really cute when it happens. And when it doesn't happen, you really hate this card. Then the next question probably would be, why am I not running more Dogmatica monsters? Well, to be honest with you, and it's not about buying, I would buy 2 more starter Ecclesias, no big deal. But to be honest with you, you don't care about adding multiple Ecclesias because now your Nadir servants can help you get full on the Albaz if you need it. You can send other cards and get a ton of other value with that card, and Ecclesia doesn't really do that. The only reason you want to run multiple Ecclesias if you are playing, let me get them out real quickly. If you were playing Dogmatica Maximus. The reason I'm not playing Dogmatica Maximus is very simple. Because if you play against any other fellow Shaddoll player, you just gain free value. Play against Drytrons, you just gain free value. Play against a lot of decks, you're giving them free value. Why would you do that with this card? And decks that don't really get free value, they'll always send something like a Sideframe Gear Omega and shuffle back in. And yeah, you might get some value then, but is it really worth it at that point? I don't think so. So the only reason I would run multiple Ecclesias if I have multiple other targets. Speaking of which, I don't run Dogmatic Punishment at all. Dogmatic Punishment is a great card in a more of a mid-range deck. Shaddoll Invoke Dogmatica, I think you have to run one of these. But because we're not playing Shaddoll Invoke Dogmatica, this card is not that good. Because this card says you can't Fusion Summon your next turn. If I can't Fusion Summon my next turn, I'm in a really bad spot. This is why D-Barrier exists. Why would you play a card that pops one of your opponent's cards and puts you under D-Barrier lock? I don't really enjoy that, so that's why I don't play this card. Another card is Dogmatic Counter, and that's the only reason I would play that if I run multiple Albaz. One Albaz is more than enough. You don't need to run multiple Albaz in this variation. There are variations that run like 2 to 3 Albaz, and yeah, this card's really cool because you can fusion summon on your opponent's turn, but the amount of stuff you have to play to get to that point, is it really worth it? I would disagree. Another card is Protecting Spirit Logares. This is a really cute little card, and when it really pops off, it is cool. But it's a tech card at the end of the day, and this deck's currently at 41. You just don't have room for cute tech cards. It is a cool card, though. Despia Pro Skeleton would be the 16th card if I had to add in my extra deck. I always like to add and tell you guys what is my 16th card, and it's Despia Pro Skeleton. Despia Tragedy is a really cool card, and let me just point something out to you because you probably already noticed it when I watched this deck profile, but I'll show it again. So obviously we run a lot of dark targets, and we run 2 Despia Tragedy, and we run 3 Allure Darkness. So it's probably something that is going to be in the minds of everybody. Why am I only running this ratio of 2 Despia Tragedies, 3 Allure Darkness, and 2 Branded Openings? Why this if I'm playing 3 Allure Darkness? Well, Allure Darkness works with other cards like Shaddolls, so you can banish those if you really needed to. So obviously you want to run it as a 3-up, no question about it. Looking at Despia Tragedy and Branded Opening, these cards work great with each other as well as Allure Darkness with Despia Tragedy. The issue is you have to draw Allure Darkness to use Despia Tragedy. You have to find another way to send to the graveyard to use Despia Tragedy. Not super hard to do, but opening multiple copies is not that good. You can't really be doing it multiple times because that says that you think you're going to survive the next turn or even a turn after that. And the game is really fast right now as far as these like mid-range decks that are really not mid-range because they can still kill you. It's just not worth it. So this deck falling into that category, you don't want to add those cards to really brick into. I think 4 cards that kind of do the same thing as well as a Luber is more than enough. So that's why I decided to go this route. Though I will say, when you Allure with Destiny and Tragedy, it feels really good because you are plussing heavily. But then again, if you get your Branded Opening, does it really matter? It really doesn't at the end of the day. So that's why I've decided not to run a third one of this at the moment. Once again, I talked about Invoked and why I'm not playing Invoked. I don't hate Invoked. I like Invoked a lot. But what are you dedicating your normal summon to? Are you normal summoning your Alistair or are you normal summoning a Luber? I would argue a Luber normal summoning is infinitely better as it lets you go into more parts of an engine. I think this card is better than Alistair, even though I like Alistair a lot. And yeah, Alistair can help you go into Mecha Bolt, which is huge. But this card itself can help you go into a slew of things. And I think that makes that card infinitely more important, especially since you're running Allure Darkness. So, the Droplets Poly is a card I think you should side. And the reason why is because it's not good against certain decks. There are decks it's amazing in, and there are decks it's not good in. So, why would you want a 3-of a card that's mediocre against some matches and really good against other matches? So, that's why I only play 1 of this card. And to be honest with you, it's the 2 I play is more than enough. I rarely see myself siding into a 3rd one. Oh, that's under the gamma. Okay, another thing I don't play as well is a Cross Sheep, access code, Celine kind of package. And the reason why it's very simple is because this is not the kill condition. You have multiple kill conditions, and with the release of this new set, those kill conditions fall into Quarterus and Pro Skeleton. These are insanely broken cards. These cards touching down the field are absolutely not fair to your opponent. Think about it. This card hits board, everything that's on a level 8 fusion to attack goes to 0. I mean, what card can really do that besides this card and what, Utopia Beyond, that you really have to go into and hopefully it sticks on the board? You just go into this card really easily. Destiny Monster plus a Light or Dark Monster, 2 seconds. This card right here is another card that if you're low against your opponent and you want to get a knock off your opponent's life points, this card's insane for that. So I really like both of these cards. I think both of these cards are really, really good. And you really don't need this. Yes, you could do this little Link Climb play in which you go into him and you can break your opponent's board and attack and try to get them in game or knock them out, but I don't think it's nowhere near as good as the rest of the cards in the extra deck, and you just don't have room ultimately. But to be honest with you, with the Despia extra deck monsters, they're really, really broken, and there's no reason I would not want to consider just playing them over anything else. Looking into the deck, this is probably, once again, this is one iteration of the deck. I will be going over almost everything Shaddoll, invoked, Dogmatica, Despia. Don't worry about it. I'm going to be going over everything. I'm going to be showing you some gameplay videos with each variation, each build. I'm not done with Shaddoll Invoked. I'm not done with Shaddoll Invoked, Dogmatica. And I'm definitely not done with Trap Shaddolls, which I haven't even started yet. It's going to be really cool to see what happens with that. I have a lot of great ideas for a lot of Shaddoll variations, and I really love playing this deck. This is Definitely my favorite meta deck of the meta. Arguably my favorite deck of all time. So we're not going anywhere. We're playing this deck for the foreseeable future. And I can't wait to start showing you guys a lot of things it does. One of my favorite cards is going to be Elder the Golden Lord. If you ask anyone who actually played Despia for a decent amount of time, one thing they'll tell you is it's really hard for them to kill your opponent. Elder the Golden Lord kind of solves that issue. It's easy because you can discard it with Despia Branded or Shaddolls Fusion or Eldar Fusion or Super Poly. It doesn't really matter. You can easily pitch it, and it's 3,500 when it hits board. And that is a big deal. Now, don't get me wrong. This card, you still need a lot of the cards to play with, but this card's huge. Imagine you clear your opponent's board out, and you have an Nadir Servant and Golden Lord and a Face of Spell and Trap. Well, that is 8,500 damage. You got Elder the Golden Lord. You're going to pop out your, where is it? You're going to pop out your Dogmatic Ecclesia. You're going to add your Fluidly, bring out Fluidly. And right there, it's 5k and 35. That's game right here. And it's really easy to do this. So I think Elder the Golden Lord is really good. Another great card against this deck is obviously going to be like Anti-Spell Fusion or Imperial Order. And once again, Elder the Golden Lord is that card you use to get rid of those cards and keep on trucking. It's just a phenomenal card. And yes, you do have to pitch a spell from your hand in order to activate its effect, but you don't mind pitching a spell, especially if it's Shaddoll Incarnation, but you don't mind pitching a spell in general if you know you're going to get rid of a Imperial Order or anti-spell, so you can continue playing the game. So that's why those cards are in there. I really do like the cards a lot. Like I said, I know there's different variations of this deck, and some people are playing things like Phoenix and Nightmare Phoenix and Nightmare Unicorn. They're not bad cards as well, but I really like this variation of this deck. It feels a lot more consistent, a lot more fluid, and what you're trying to do with this deck is you're just trying to put buys on board to kill your opponent as fast and efficiently as possible. Obviously, you can easily go into Winda, really easily go into Winda, and of course the Dogmatic package to make your opponent's life a living hell. So that's why I play this variation deck. I'm gonna have some videos coming out showing you how this deck plays. I have a physical locals that I'm going to be probably vlogging soon. Definitely going to be streaming some of these physical locals, and I'm going to be going back in those videos and grabbing those videos and putting them on this channel as well, so we could talk about what I could have did better, what I misplayed on, and how we can improve as a Shaddoll Invoked Dogmatica player. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, this is the only deck I care about. Shaddoll Invoked Dogmatica Despia. That's the only deck I care about, and I'm definitely looking to play this deck in the foreseeable future as my solo deck. Do I have other deck cores running around? Sure. I have full Tri Brigade, but I like this deck a lot more. I like the new tools we have. We can do a lot more cool things, and I can't wait to show you all this on this channel. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe button, comment down below. Anyway, it's your boy V, and YGOPaisano. Have a great day.